The next interview is in English, so I will also do the presentation in English. I had the chance to meet with Kathryn Drysdale from Riverside Studio. My first contact with with the work of Kathryn, was at the very beginning of my knitting life, at the La Maison Tricotée in Montreal. I had very, very little experience, but I remember I was really impressed with her yarns. They were to me like little work of art. I really was impressed with the colors, the subtlety of the colors and the richness at the same time, the use of the speckles. I don't know. I remember I was really, really impressed with this work, even though I couldn't really tell because I was just beginning, so I couldn't really begin to understand the quantity of work, the amount of work that was behind all of her work. But now I do know. And so I was really glad when I got to meet in person with Kathryn, and to get to know more about her creative process and her inspirations behind her yarn.
So I'm Kathryn Drysdale. I'm the owner-operator of Riverside Studio, which is located just north of Wakefield, Quebec, which is in the Outaouais. Riverside Studio I started maybe about 10 years ago dyeing yarn, because I had started knitting again after a long period of not knitting, about 20 years of not knitting. I took it up again. And a friend introduced me to hand-dyed yarn. I believe it was Madeleine Tosh that I saw. And I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And I loved it so much. I thought I'd like to have some of that yarn, but it's very expensive. And because I'm an artist, I'm a visual artist with a long career in the visual arts, and I knew something about dyeing, and I'm a real do-it-yourselfer, I just figured out how to dye yarn. So I went on Ravelry, which was a huge resource at the time. And there was a lot of information there. And I got myself set up in my studio at the time, which was a very small studio with a tiny kitchen that was essentially 4 by 5 feet. And eventually it grew, and it started to take over my other my other career as a visual artist. So the studio was located at the time in Wakefield, in the village, on Riverside Drive. And I named it Riverside Studio because I really wanted to be able to do whatever products I wanted to do. So if I wanted to, do a visual, like a painting or a drawing, and it came out of my studio, it could be that, or it could be yarn, or it could be whatever I wanted to do. So I was trying to leave this sort of vague title. So it could be anything, but the yarn eventually took over. So Twist Festival, I heard about that from a friend the very first year that it was happening. And it's a friend of mine that raises goats up here in this region. And she heard from Emily that she was organizing this fiber arts festival. She called me about it, and I was immediately very interested. So I quickly applied, and I was accepted that first year. And so the Twist Festival was hugely instrumental in growing my business. So at the very beginning, I was really 1 foot in my visual arts career and 1 foot in the fiber arts world. And through Twist, I was able to make a lot of connections and learn what it was to run a business like that, where you have a product that you sell and meet with your customers right face to face and help them choose things. And I really enjoyed it.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your sources of inspiration?
Because I'm a visual artist, I would say that my inspiration is pretty widespread. I'm inspired by just about everything I see. That includes the natural world around me, of course, but also all the visual arts, painting, drawing, and all the fiber arts. So I'm very interested in all kinds of fiber arts. I practice some of them, not all of them. I'd like to do more, but there's only so much time. And I'm also, my studio is located in an artist co-op. And that is also a huge inspiration to me because I'm surrounded by artists doing all different media, some painters, some fiber artists, photographers, ceramics, and having that community around you is a huge source of inspiration. So yeah, people in and out of my studio all day. And as I'm producing color, we talk about the color that's hanging from the racks, and it's fun for me to go and see what the other artists are doing and talk to them about what they're doing and get inspired also by what they're doing.
Would you like to describe to us a typical day in your practice? So do you work more in the morning or in the night? Do you work with music out loud or more in the silence?
I work in the morning, in the daytime. Usually I start around 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. I go to my studio, which is a short drive from where I live. And it's a beautiful drive, I have to add, because I drive up the Gatineau River, which is really gorgeous. This very rural area here. So so that's a real pleasure. And when I get to my studio, I check what needs to be done. I keep a list on the wall with the help of a colleague of mine, Julie, who keeps me on track. She's very organized and she helped organize me at a time when my business started to grow really fast and I couldn't manage anymore on my own. She came and helped me in the business. Dyeing the yarn is just one part of it. And as an artist, I'm really great at producing things. I can focus on that and get stuff done, but I'm not as good at all the other little details that have to be done, making sure that, I talk to all the customers all the time, and communications and packing and all the millions of little details. So she helped me with that. So we go in together, and I usually do the dyeing in the morning, and then we switch up in the afternoon. So I trained her how to dye, and in the afternoon, I sit and do anything else that has to be done. I communicate with customers, I plan, I order materials, I do all the shipping, whatever needs to be done. And the day goes by very fast before you know it's over. And the last thing I do every day is visit the post office. So that's quite close to where I live. So I just take all the packages and send them off.
If you had to describe your work, how would you describe it?
I guess I would like to describe my color palette as being a sophisticated one. I dye mostly yarns that I would love to work with myself. And I'm always looking to come up with new colors that will make a beautiful palette. So it's a lot of fun to do that. So you look at what you have already done, and then you can try and think of things that are different, or will fill holes in areas that you've already filled. I think my work is very colorful, and my colors are pretty unique. I do a lot of masculine colors. I tend not to do a lot of pink colored yarns or super brights. I have a few bright yarns, but I tend to move away from that into color. I wouldn't say neutral. There's a lot of color in my yarns, but I really try to produce yarns that look really beautiful when they're knit up, not just in the skein. Julie, my colleague that I was talking about, is an incredible knitter, and she's really fast. She loves to knit. So whenever we're dyeing yarns, she's planning on knitting with them, and she tests them in projects, and then we can really see how the yarns work up, and if they work well for garments. And this is as the majority of our business is for garments, and so of course we want them to look beautiful and not not really crazy colors. Something we would wear ourselves.
What accomplishment are you the most proud of?
That I was able to build this business to the point where I feel quite secure, and I can make a half decent living. And I'm in my studio every single day, which is what I have always wanted to do. So I don't have to work outside of my studio to make money to pay the bills, and that's a huge factor for me. Although I am an art instructor, and I teach figure drawing and other art courses at Ottawa School of Art, and I really enjoy that. I love interacting with students who are sort of beginning their ideas of careers of becoming artists. I love to help them do that, and that's really fun. So I wouldn't give that up. But the thing that I'm most proud of about the yarn business is that I was able to build it to a point where it could be sustainable as a living. And as an artist, if you've ever tried to do that with the visual arts, it's very difficult.
So we have 3 photos. Do you have a one that you prefer? Why do you find it more inspiring? Is it the lines, the colors? And also, if you had to do a project with this, what would it be?
Yeah, so I chose the photo. I think it's of a canyon. So it's kind of, what do I want to say, pinky beiges with lots of movement in it and lines. I think I'm really attracted to it. 2 different levels. One, as a drawer, I could see myself doing a very large charcoal drawing of that. Monochromatically, just because there's a lot of movement in it. So I'm really attracted to that. As a dyer, it's also got a lot of variation in tones, which are very beautiful. And it even almost mimics the lines of, if you can imagine a skein of yarn unwound and all the lines sort of traveling. Yeah, I could do the colors, and then you do a photograph of it that sort of mimics, that movement. There's a lot of different things you could do with that photograph.
We are already to the last question. If you want to share with us a secret wish that you have for your company or your practice, something that you would like to happen in the next years.
In my practice, I have not thought a lot about the future. I've always just put one foot in front of the next and continued along the way that. And a lot of good things happened along the way. I was really lucky. I would love to see my yarn become more international. I've had some success with that, with yarn in Paris and in the UK. I have a lot of customers, of course, from online, from all over the world that buy yarn. But I would love to grow the business a little bit, not too much. I still like being a small business with just 1 or 1.5 employees, which is basically what I have now. So that might be a secret wish. I would also love to have a home studio that would allow me to travel less and have my visual art practice space separated from my fiber arts space, so that they could live independently, because one is very messy and they don't meld very well when you have like fluffy yarn floating around in the space. It sticks to things, and paint is very dirty and messy and a lot of that kind of thing. That doesn't work very well, if you're trying to keep your yarn clean. while you're working with it. So yeah, I'd like to have those two spaces separate and have enough time to give them both equal attention.